Starfield is the newest addition to the Bethesda game studio's library of RPGs, and launched with plenty of fanfare and advertising muscle behind it. Considering the game was included with Game Pass for Xbox and PC, it experienced wide exposure and no doubt saw people trying it out that may not have spent money on it otherwise. I mean, if you already have Game Pass, why not, right? Hello there, I'm Dr. Ursa, and I'm playing on Xbox since my PC is a little out of date, and noticed that some of the less challenging achievements are still marked as rare or showing a low percentage across all players. I'm sure that there are folks who went into this expecting something completely different, maybe a Bethesda-flavored No Man's Sky, or even Fallout in space to keep it closer to home, but that is not exactly what was delivered, was it? Starfield definitely features a lot of the distinctive Bethesda flavor and humor, but takes the entire setting and characters into a brighter, more optimistic future. For better or worse, both society and individuals seem focused on the positive side of things, sometimes to frustrating levels. Let me just say now that I don't think this game is a perfect 10 out of 10, and I won't pretend that there are not some flaws and rough spots that stand out, but I'm not here to just crap on it either. I like this game. I like it a lot.
Fool this man!
My almost 200-hour save file kind of supports this and hopefully qualifies me to share my thoughts and opinions with you now. I will admit that at least 12 or more of these hours and a significant amount of my credits have been sunk into the shipbuilder, but more on that specific part of the game later. There will also be some heavy spoilers later in the video, so I will warn you and include a timestamp if you are watching this before playing yourself. Don't worry, as there is plenty to talk about before getting into the deep plot stuff. Starfield was announced to the world at E3 2018, and quite a bit of attention was drawn to the fact that it is Bethesda's first new IP in 25 years. Even before 10 years of Skyrim re-releases, Bethesda was not known for rapid development. Bethesda themselves coined the term for the game's aesthetic as NASA punk, and focused on a near-future setting with a lot of basis in current technology. One of the smaller details I love are some of the tablet and screen surfaces throughout, as it is clearly some sort of evolution of something like those Paperwhite e-readers. There are obviously liberties taken with most of the tech, with both laser and particle beam weapons existing commonly in both ship-mounted and handheld forms, but some things are just classic designs updated with new, sometimes fictional materials to meet the space-age setting. After all, a shotgun is a shotgun at the end of the day. A core aspect of this universe is that there is not true faster-than-light travel or communication, and the really long-distance stuff is done via space-folding gravity drives that are more like a wormhole device than a typical propulsion engine. So the setting is that humanity came together in the face of a planetary disaster that was forcing us off of Earth. It is explained pretty early that the magnetosphere faded out and Earth lost its atmosphere, forcing humanity to branch out across the stars to escape our doomed home. There are actually a couple of museums that you can visit and learn about this history in-game, and it can be interesting to see the slight spin put on the past depending on who is telling you the story. There is one for the United Colonies that is right near the start of the game that I wish I would have done a bit earlier just to have this background info. It wasn't necessary, as I had learned quite a bit from the various NPCs in my adventures, as most of them have set political leanings or a personal history with the conflicts of the galaxy. The United Colonies is one of the 3 major political factions in Starfield, and one of 2 that are still active or present in current affairs. The Freestar Collective stands as their opposite, with a history of multiple direct conflicts between the 2 governments, and the elusive House Veyruun only exists as a dangerous shadow of its former power and glory. There are some obvious differences between the main 2, with the UC representing a more utopian but also oppressive take on a sci-fi future. There are different classes of citizens, and the only way to earn citizenship itself is through service, a la Starship Trooper levels of pseudo-fascism. The Freestar Collective, on the other hand, embraces a more capitalistic and independent viewpoint that sees them led by a council of governors that represent the different areas of the settled systems. This leads to obvious conflicts of interest between corporate success and political freedoms without the oversight of a governing body to keep the system in check. Neither side is painted as completely right or wrong, which is how a good faction system should be. Another comparison can be seen by both factions' approach to policing and military, in that the UC keeps a standing navy and uniformed security forces, while the Freestar Collective utilizes a more limited number of appointed rangers and their deputies to help keep the peace. I mean, both of these really just change the flavor of ships and NPCs that you encounter out in space, but a significant amount of fun can come from letting yourself get immersed in these worlds and events. The serpent god worshipping House Veyruun mysteriously withdrew from the Greater Settled Systems prior to the events of the game, and have strong see you in a DLC vibes from the limited experiences you do have with them. Hostile Veyruun ships and enemies will occasionally show up during your adventures, and can even offer some unique interactions depending on your personal character perks. Like most Bethesda RPGs, you will be able to choose from a set of limited perks during character creation. These can be simple stuff like which of these governments you were born into as a native, providing bonus dialogue when appropriate without limiting any faction choices, all the way up to perks like kid stuff that will generate in-game parents that you can interact with throughout the game. Catch them over on Neon considering taking Aurora for a fun encounter. There is one of these perks that technically makes you a member of House Veyruun, but for lore reasons, this just means they typically give you a chance to walk away before combat. No thanks, I want my EXP and loot. You know our stance around here on Snake Gods.
False god. Dead false god.
This perk system will carry through your levels, with Starfield representing perks through patches grouped into categories such as physical, social, combat, science, and tech, with each perk featuring upgrades that increase the benefits provided and require you to complete challenges prior to upgrading. This is a fun idea in that most of the perk upgrade challenges will force you to use the skill in question and reinforce the idea that you are getting better through direct experience performing a task or using that skill. It gives me more Elder Scrolls vibes than Fallout, but I promise you that I will try to keep this from being a constant reference to what came before. Beyond these skill points earned with each level, you don't actually have control over your character's stats directly in any meaningful way. Obviously, gear and aid items can provide temporary boost, but you'll have to rely on a few perks in the physical tree that will increase your health, damage resistances, and even your O2 drain. O2 is pretty much your stamina bar in this one, and is used for sprinting, jumping, or just moving in general if you are over encumbered, and you will be at least once if you are playing this right. You can even learn a combat slide from one of these perks. Obviously, the category of the perks help you decide what your focus is, but honestly some of these seem a little limiting in regards to overall accessibility to core gameplay features. There is a perk on the bottom tier of the social tree that you can get a level up for free through one of the main faction quests in the game, and it allows you to pretty much mind control NPCs for short periods and has tons of potential for chaos and fun. It would take several hours of gameplay and leveling to get far enough down the perks to unlock this skill otherwise. Some of the ship-based perks like piloting and starship design feel a bit limiting as well in the early game, but I guess I understand it as an attempt to keep the challenge alive for longer. Once you can really dump time and credits into a good custom ship, the space combat becomes trivial in regards to difficulty. So sort of like the museum tours I mentioned earlier, none of this is exactly required for you to experience the core aspects of Starfield, but after many hours and levels, I can say that the game gets a lot more fun once you have access to these cool toys. I focused heavily on the ship-based perks, as that is one of my favorite parts of the game, but the social tree really opens up a lot of the RPG style fun that can be had. Persuasion, intimidation, and even bribery are all tools to be used if you want to settle things outside of the shooty bang bang approach.
Wait, why do you have a shotgun?
I just want to talk to him.
Dad, this is ridiculous!
I just want to talk to him.
That said, you will end up shooting things quite a lot in this game. That isn't a bad thing unless you have some strong aversion to shooters overall. No judgment here if so. The shooting and movement in this game is pretty tight. I enjoy the different types of guns and how they handle, finding myself with a strong affinity for shotguns in this particular Bethesda outing. Don't judge, there are at least 5 types of shotguns that I have found so far, and that doesn't include the legendary modifier 1-inch punch that turns any gun's bullets into a shotgun spread. I got lucky and landed a blue Big Bang particle shotgun early in my playthrough, and it carried me through any actually difficult parts well past level 60. I named it the Shot Fun, and even started using different weapons to make things fair for a bit. Accurate, high damage, and leaves this super cool spiral-based impact pattern on the wall. I cannot recommend this weapon type enough. You are not limited to a run-and-gun approach either, with stealth being a poorly explained but viable option once you know what you're doing. It's 23:30, and you're still somehow just another stealth archer from Skyrim. Damn.
Hey, you. Finally.
Jokes aside, the game never really explains that one of the biggest boosts of stealth you can have is to remove your spacesuit, helmet, and pack before trying to sneak. It falls firmly into that it makes logical sense category once you think about it, but with options to hide this gear in breathable environments, I personally did not think it would factor in. After all, Stealth has always been independent of or boosted by armor in previous Bethesda titles. Take off the suit, put some points into the stealth perk, and maybe take a drug-filled inhaler, and suddenly you can find yourself fulfilling all of your Moonraker-inspired dreams and become an avenging ghost. Bonus points for stealth kills in low and zero-G environments. With decent ragdoll physics, you can get some rather comedic kills. Finding a spacer standing at a terminal and watching their loot-filled corpse just stand there after a headshot is sillier than I expected. Play with the toys provided and find what type of weapon works for you. Starfield features leveled loot tables for most items, so you will eventually discover stronger versions of most weapons as you go. I enjoy handing off my previous favorites to companions to keep things close to home. Give them exactly one bullet for the weapon in question and they will use it until you tell them otherwise. Do keep in mind that their AI gets a little dumb with some of the heavy weapons available. Avoid stuff like the microgun that have a spin-up period, as they seem to struggle with these particularly. Most of this stuff will just end up being vendor fodder for you anyway, as the grind for money is very real in this game. I'm not always a fan of modding or using console commands right out the gate, but man, I wish I could just give myself more funds at this point just to really have fun with the shipbuilding. The economy of Starfield is not great, and this is one of the most common complaints you will probably find about this game right now. Most vendors have a laughably small amount of credits available to conduct business with. Now you can wait 48 hours in-game to reset this inventory and eventually get everything done, but there is no real way to improve the economy in meaningful ways without modding or console commands at the moment. Now here is my hot take on this. Is it really a bad thing? A part of me instantly says yes. I am pushing level 80 and I've done almost every quest I can find and do not enjoy not being able to build or tweak a nice ship without spending a couple of hours farming loot to sell. But also acknowledge that this is forcing me out into the game and making me interact with the systems available. I check every mission board I pass and even build them at my outpost to make sure I always have a steady stream of work available. Is it a bad thing to be forced to play the game to be able to continue playing the part of the game I like? I do not have a definitive answer on this topic, as there are many possible factors to consider. If this was some type of MMO or competitive game, then the incentive to grind would be quite obvious. But how much should that also apply to single-player experiences like Starfield? What is your opinion here? I am genuinely curious. Now, having a super high amount of credits is really only useful for one thing as you get further in the game, and that is for buying and selling ships, or the ultimate credit sink, building custom ships. This is easily my favorite part of the game, and Starfield even goes to the fun length of tracking credits spent on shipbuilding alone. At least half of my total credits have been sunk into this feature throughout my playthrough. This wasn't done all at once, as my main ship, the Renegade, was a slow evolution into the final current design and required running some lower end parts until I was high enough level to unlock the best stuff. Yeah, the leveled loot tables carry over to the shipbuilding as well. This does mean that you will see some meaningful rewards as you progress, but with minimal returns from selling/trading in old components, I ended up looking this list up just to see if I should go ahead and spend the credits or wait just a bit longer. There's a lot of potential in the shipbuilding system, and I cannot wait to see what will be developed by both Bethesda and modders going forward. Think about all the stuff that was added to the settlement system in Fallout 4. Hopefully you will start to see what I do. Modders on PC have already done some fun stuff like unlocking the capital ship Class M parts for usage by the player, but those of us on console are still limited to vanilla and simple attachment point glitches for now. The unspoken part of all this potential is that it means that there are a lot of low-hanging fruit that arguably could have been addressed prior to launch. While I understand how certain parts such as large reactors do not have attachment points all the way around, I fail to understand why we cannot rotate most cosmetic pieces along multiple axes if we can rotate them at all. Minor nitpicks really, as I am totally in love with the system either way, and would rather see some way to save my designs or share them with others before anything else was added or changed. I also understand that, like the settlement building in Fallout 4, some people may get turned completely off by the idea of building it themselves. Thankfully, there are some great designs available to purchase throughout the game, and my advice to anyone struggling with the ships in the early game would be to focus on the Freestar Ranger questline. Without getting specific, the end of the entire chain will give you a rather nice ship that can hold its own no matter when you get it in the game. Star Eagle Gang, rise up. The entire reason you need to worry about ships is that it is your main form of transportation throughout the Blackest Sea. You will use it as a sort of mini base that you take with you, And that is my reason for having a large ship with tons of cargo. I want to be able to travel far and carry everything with me at once, but you can honestly get away with a tiny ship as long as it can eventually jump far enough for the quest. Starfield features a map of the settled systems that can be a bit confusing at first, but once you spend a little time in it, it becomes easier to understand. It is in 3D, and sometimes the depth can make it a bit deceptive for judging distance. Just get a better grav drive and add more fuel tanks to your ship, and you will get everywhere you need to go. Ship combat will force you to eventually upgrade your shields and weapons, and all of these together are what creates the gameplay loop of needing better and better ships along the way. This whole video could probably be about ships, but that is not the goal today. I really like the ships, y'all. Starfield pulls another classic Bethesda move in that each of the main political factions, plus a few other large players such as Ryujin Industries, all have quest lines independent of each other. Starfield is pretty lenient as well in that none of these main factions will lock you out of the others. I know that some people have cried foul at this, but honestly I'm not sure why anyone is surprised at this kind of storytelling by now. Most developers do not want a player to potentially miss out on a portion of their game, but I would have been a bit more on board with at least temporary lockouts, maybe while you're in the middle of one. It does have that old problem where I ended up in charge of or high ranking in pretty much every major organization available. I mean, obviously my character feels pretty powerful and that is fun, but there are moments where I wish I could reference my status as, say, a Freestar Ranger more often as an example. Not to say it doesn't happen at all, and sometimes my high-level character would find himself having to choose between which of these unique dialogues to use, but there were plenty of other times where it should have been obvious and wasn't. Either way, I will just segue that into saying that I think the dialogue is still pretty good overall. I enjoyed the characters that were supposed to be comedic, such as Barrett or even in the opening side character Lynn, and found myself annoyed at more pious characters like Mateo. Don't even get me started on Sarah or Sam. Just take my advice and leave the little Cub Scouts at home if you ever decide to go out for some mild piracy or extortion. I had a moment where a usually friendly ship started attacking me due to a 500 credit bounty on my head, and since they were spawned in for the random encounter where they request repair parts, they were just sitting still with disabled engines shooting at me. I ended up having to blow them up before I died myself due to my low level at the time, and Sarah and Sam both gave me an earful in response. I really wanted to show them to the airlock at that point, but just ended up picking up other companions to fill out my crew instead. This highlights that overall positive or goody two-shoes mentality to the entire game. Starfield is seriously lacking in the evil options for a playthrough. There is the Crimson Fleet, a faction of pirates that you can join, but even they are a bit more Saturday morning cartoon tough than actually scary in my opinion. Nothing is stopping you from just going guns blazing everywhere, but high bounties and constant combat can get a bit tiring after a while. More in the spoiler section on that, but play however you see fit. As far as I know, you cannot lock yourself out of anything major, so go nuts. There are some more serious moments in the story, and I personally think the voice actors did their part admirably. They made me feel bad when appropriate, and there's a certain heavy scene that can play out differently in the main quest, and I'm still working through all the variations. The story of Starfield starts with you as a nondescript miner working on a remote job. When a mysterious artifact is discovered, you are the one sent in to retrieve it. This will propel you on your journey as the mysterious buyer will arrive and send you off to Constellation headquarters to deliver the artifact in person. The buyer is revealed to be Barrett, a main member of Constellation and a possible companion and romance option, who hands over captaincy of the famous ship the Frontier and the robot Vasco to go along with it. Once your character goes through a few tutorial missions, you will find yourself at the Lodge, which is the HQ for Constellation. Constellation is the main organization that your character will join and partner with to seek out the remaining artifacts throughout the galaxy. There are a few members total, but only 4 of them are considered main companions that can join you on your quest. There is Barrett, who I already mentioned, my personal favorite, as well as Sarah Morgan, Sam Coe, and Andreja. Sarah is the closest thing to a mascot character available for this game, and is clearly a crowd favorite in regards to romance options and character backstory. I don't have any particular beef with her, but I honestly wasn't that impressed with Space Denarius and pissed her off one too many times with my actions. Maybe in a future run, but for now she is relegated to RPing as my ship's doctor and never much else. Sam Coe is the cowboy archetype and even comes along with his young daughter always in tow. She won't follow you out into combat or exploration, but he seemingly has no problem bringing her along for any and all of the ship battles along the way. Father of the year over here. Just kidding. I don't hate Coraco as much as the internet seems to want me to.
Okay. Who can jump higher than a skyscraper in New Atlantis?
I don't know. Who?
everybody! Skyscrapers can't jump!
I do wish that I could actually deliver books to her, as ever since the first time she dropped that idle dialogue, I picked up a few on my next outing. Missed opportunity there, Bethesda. Sam has extensive history with the Freestar Collective and even used to be a Freestar Ranger himself. I would suggest bringing him along for that questline if you can. He will have several insights and can even help out with some of the tougher conversations. Andrea rounds out the main companions and is one of the best overall. She is presented as a no-nonsense tough character who is a member of House Veyroon and has no problem shooting her way out of problems. She doesn't love random acts of violence or anything, but is definitely one of the less squeamish characters to join up. Andrea does seem a bit shy, however, as she sometimes likes to run around with just her head and neck invisible. Relatable, Andrea. Relatable. There are other companions available either through a one-time, usually negotiable hiring fee, or unlocked through other faction quest lines or even small fetch quests. There are even nameless generic NPCs available to hire if you really just want specific perks to complement your own. Oh yeah, crew perks will complement your own and provide greater benefits. Most of these stack with your own perks, but typically do not stack with other crew members. Vasco's Anutronic Fusion will stack with your own, for example, but adding a second crew member with the same perk will not provide even more power. Keep this in mind, and you can really help cover styles of play that you may not have invested deeply into yourself. There are limits. Samco's piloting perk will not let you fly anything above your own personal class limit, but you would see the other passive benefits from the piloting perks, such as the increased turning rate and maneuverability. I do have to keep repeating the same point about this game though, and that all of this is really optional. You can get by without ever really adding anyone to your crew or taking any companions beyond what the individual quests require. I have seen people online complaining about this lack of extreme challenge, but I think they're missing the point of it all. With this being a new IP for Bethesda, and their first since becoming part of Xbox, they have clearly designed for accessibility over any type of hardcore appeal. That isn't to say that these people's desires are wrong or won't ever get fulfilled. I'm just trying to take the product for what it is as opposed to what I wished it could be. There is also so much hope for the future. Bethesda themselves stated just a couple of weeks after launch that both DLC and a creation kit were already being worked on, and that Starfield had minimum 5 years of planned support out of the gate. This is the company that put Skyrim on almost every single platform available, so I keep a little faith in their desire to continue making money on this franchise. So I got a bit off track from the story due to the companions there, and that is kind of how this game goes as well. The main quest, both story and the various factions, will move you along by introducing new characters to bring in new ideas or MacGuffins. Once you have been welcomed properly to Constellation, you're kind of free to go out into space and do whatever you like. It's a little less dramatic than leaving a vault or escaping execution, but this is Starfield's go do what you want moment. There are more fun characters to meet and adventures to be had with the various factions, but that's all I will say before going into spoiler territory. There are some really cool twists that come later in the game, so here's the warning to skip ahead if you do not want to hear spoilers. The timestamp should be on the screen below. Again, spoilers for the main plot of the game coming now. Here we go. You are Starborn. No, Starborn with an N. I'm gonna get into it, but let me just say that this is one of the coolest implementations of a New Game Plus mechanic I have ever seen. So what does being a Starborn mean? You will learn throughout the game as you collect the artifacts that they unlock various gravity and space-themed powers that make you somewhat superhuman. Very reminiscent of the dragon shouts in Skyrim, these can augment combat or even assist with traversal and come with various levels of usefulness. My most used power was Sense Star Stuff, which highlights living creatures even through walls. It does not help as much against robots or turrets, but really shines when hunting down those final pirates on a large ship you've boarded. You're not alone in seeking this power, as other Starborn will start confronting you as you gather more and more artifacts. This culminates with multiple meetings with a Starborn known only as the Hunter. This foe will provide some of the more challenging combat encounters throughout the game, and give some great examples of how powerful any Starborn can eventually become. This back and forth culminates with the Hunter attacking Constellation at both their HQ of the Lodge and the remote space station, the Eye. Your closest two companions will have been forcibly split between these locations prior to this moment, and you will have to decide who to save. The other one will die. For me, the decision was split between saving Barrett or Sam. I really liked Barrett and had done his companion quest at this point, so I just had to go save my bro. This meant that when I returned to the lodge, I found Sam lying in a pool of his own blood while the others, including his daughter Cora, mourned his passing right in front of me. I know a lot of people found themselves with a romantic angle to consider in this mission, but I found myself stuck between my two best bros and really don't think I would have been happy either way. Cora fucking ugly cried, and it really made me wish I could have done more. After this dramatic moment, the Hunter surprisingly calls a ceasefire and introduces us to another named Starborn in the process, the Emissary. I am glossing over some of the individual back and forth that is now available with these characters, but mostly because I can only speak directly to the ones I experienced myself. I have learned since getting past these points in the story that there are several times you can actually find and interact with the Hunter prior to the drama and confrontations with him in the main story. Let me know where you found the Hunter and what he said in the comments. I'm looking forward to discovering more of these myself in future runs. So after some more back and forth with artifacts and temples which are cool the first few times but quickly grew tedious, mind you eventually learn more about the concept of the Starborn overall and read the writings of one named the Pilgrim. The Pilgrim's writings teach us that the Starborn are people who have passed through the Unity and ascended out into the multiverse. Pretty much. It is sort of like a Groundhog's Day loop, but on a universal scale. Each time a Starborn collects the artifacts and gains more power, they pass through the Unity and into a new universe. It gets a bit hazy to me on some of the specifics, but the overall gist is that you will progress through the infinite multiverse, gaining power as you go and observing the minute differences along the way. This means that a Starborn like the Hunter has been through the Unity more times than he can remember and has thus seen most of these events play out in one way or another. The movie The Edge of Tomorrow might be an easier example for folks to wrap their heads around, where you do gain an advantage of prior events, but things are still subject to change on each pass-through. After this lore dump, you will find yourself face to face with both the Hunter and the Emissary for the game's next big twist. The Emissary is a Starborn variant of your fallen companion from the events at the Lodge earlier in the game.
What a twist!
So this was probably one of my favorite conversations in the game. Both of these Starborn take the time to explain their own philosophy in regards to the artifacts and just the existence of the Starborn overall, and even ask you to pick sides between them for the final battle to come. I personally channeled my inner Franklin and chose the third option that told them both to stuff it.
Man, you know what? Man, fuck you.
Genius answer, pal. Total genius.
But I honestly find myself agreeing a bit more with the Hunter overall. Either way, I'm not here for that full ethical debate today. I just think the personal experience of living through an almost infinite number of realities would lead one to becoming a bit disconnected from humanity and the morals that come along with it. Not saying he is right, just saying it's hard to argue with the invisible teleporting space wizard when he says nothing really matters. I shot them both in the face anyway. Give me them loots! All of this leads to the final moment of the game. Entering the Unity yourself and fully becoming Starborn. This will be a huge and irreversible decision, beyond reverting to an earlier save, so make sure you have really thought it through. There is some unique dialogue from the various companions before you do this, but ultimately it is up to you. Once you step through, you will be remade and leave this current universe behind forever. This means all of your credits, ships, items, quest progress, properties that you own, relationships that you may have started, all of it will be reset back to day one. You do retain your levels and perks, so at least you can continue to build power upon this character as you go. Welcome to New Game Plus. You now have access to the special Starborn ship and armor, as well as tons of unique Starborn dialogue options and conversations. There is even a special shortened version of the main story quest where you can essentially walk in the front door and exposition dump to the members of Constellation in regards to the artifacts and Starborns without all the initial digging around for info. This can lead to a point in the story where you can correct the events of your previous universe and make sure that every member of Constellation survives the encounter with the Hunter. Very satisfying overall, and I have yet to personally experience every Starborn addition to the game in conversations. I'm looking forward to future runs and universes, mostly due to Bethesda's forethought in including multiversal variants that can pop up on different trips through the Unity. This can be all of Constellation being dead upon arrival, all of them being roleplayed by children, or even a variant where every member is just another version of your own player character. I've purposely avoided any list of all of these multiversal variants because it's just that fun of a concept to discover. A quick nitpick here is that I do wish there was a way to change or pick new starter traits when passing through to a new game. As of right now, you will always be limited to your choices from initial character creation. I do plan on making new characters, but the addition of New Game Plus does kind of change up my motivation and plans. Like, do I just start a new universe with the same powerful character and pick different choices as I play? Or make someone new to see those other quest options? Currently, the lack of changing starter traits is the main motivator for starting a new character, so maybe it should stay that way overall. Now, I know that the New Game Plus addition to this game has been considered somewhat controversial by the overall gaming community due to losing everything / restarting the universe. But I want to challenge you to try and see it from a new perspective for a moment. What if that is the entire point of the Starborn as a philosophical concept? The writing of the Pilgrim in-game talks about the very idea that I see players debating on Reddit and Discord. Should you speedrun the main story to get to and through New Game Plus for the rewards? Or should you do a super thorough playthrough of the first universe before ever stepping through the Unity? This is the very question the Hunter and Emissary were laying out for you earlier in the game. The Hunter represents the approach that the path to power is justified in the reward of said power, while the Emissary argues the classic, the power was the friends and adventure we had along the way angle. Nothing is ever stopping you from not stepping through the Unity and always remaining in the first universe presented to you that you may have spent hours developing. It is your own personal fear of missing out that can drive you to make that decision and leave it all behind to discover what is next. Or you never cared to begin with and need to see numbers get bigger and just sped through conversations and shot your way through everything else. The point of the Starborn is that both and any other available options are all made possible through your very nature as a Starborn. You are the force of change in this and any other universe you exist in. The enemy Starborn's dialogue even points to this by mentioning that this is the first universe where you did more than just die during the Lodge incident. You, the player, are the catalyst of change and will forever get to decide your own reality with the option to move on from it all and begin again. It is honestly kind of genius in that it is a meta look at the concept of you as the player in an RPG. It is just deep enough to make you feel smart, but shallow enough that you can skip dialogue and still mostly figure out what's going on. I'll just say it now as well. The physical in-game rewards for spamming through New Game Plus are not worth the headache in my opinion. The armor looks great and will upgrade up to 10 times, but takes up all 3 slots and can be outclassed by most high-level rare or legendary armor. And the ship only upgrades to +6 and can't hold a candle to any decent custom ship. Do you either way, but know that the game itself already considered most types of players and points a finger right back at us in regards to our opinions and desires for more. Anyway, I think that the reveal of the first temple power and the Starborn goes right up there with that first dragon fight in Skyrim. I had been playing for several hours before unlocking any powers, and man, I could think of so many times I could have used them leading up to that moment. I think they did a great job of hiding this part of the game in the lead up and marketing material as well, and I will be interested to see how long before any marketing does start to reveal that it's a bit more than an astronaut RP. It is a good twist, and I hope you understand why I didn't want to spoil it outright. Okay, spoilers over. Thanks for hanging out, and if you did click ahead, then consider coming back to watch that section once you have played the game yourself. I appreciate your time here either way. So I want to give a short list of things that I have seen folks requesting, and a couple that I would love to see myself. Feel free to add to this if you want. Ship blueprints or designs that could be shared. Maybe like a code or something complex if needed. Control over interior connection points when building or modifying ships. Ladders suck, but at least let me decide where they go. The ability to bring in targets alive. My character had the bounty hunter background trait, and multiple ships come along with a brig hab, so let the EM weapons fulfill this role and play a slightly more ethical human hunter. A way to change or add new starting traits. Currently you can only remove them or start a completely new character. And finally, a way to invest into the economy of the world. Let me put an outpost on a planet and or build my own trading hub where I can make money without having to exploit all the various time differentials to reset vendors. My ass has left a permanent mark in the chair in front of the trade authority at the den.
My groove! Oh, they mushed it all out of shape.
Obviously, there are a lot of other improvements that can be made, but that wasn't my point here in this video. Bethesda has already announced some of their plans and are even working on quality of life requests this early into the game's lifespan. They will get there, and modders will fill any gaps still left behind. Starfield will endure. So there's my Starfield review. Thanks for watching, and extra thanks for sticking around this long. I didn't mean to take as long as I did for this one, but I kinda got sucked into playing this great game for a couple of weeks. I already have stuff lined up for my next review, so if you found this entertaining, then consider subscribing so you don't miss any future videos. I need to go build more ships now, and look into upgrading my PC so I can join in on the modding fun. Thank you again for any and all of your time. I've been Dr. Ursa, and until the next one, take care.